Hype. Not for what you want, but for what you unrealistically aspire something to be. This is a paraphrased quote from the Lotus herself. Well, more like extremely paraphrased, but I believe it encapsulates all that surrounds hype culture, not only in Warframe but in gaming. Hype gave us No Man's Sky version 1.0. Led us to believe that Star Wars Battlefront 2 was going to be an ever-expanding, years-long live service, when it clearly isn't going to be. And in Warframe, it killed The War Within. Hands down the best cinematic experience in the game thus far. Well, that and the 1-year delay, the little to no content during that infamous 2016, but my point is, hype is bad. And yes, us content creators bank on that hype to generate views, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. We feed off the tiny droplets of news, giving them to you, and more often than not, expanding them with our own wild speculations, fanning the flames, increasing awareness, and in some cases, creating false expectations. So from that point of view, you may say this video is, in on itself, a bit hypocritical. Still, I want to talk about hype and how it hurts the game as much as it helps it grow. I'm Deuce, and thanks in advance for watching. It all began with The War Within. After the incredible success of the second Dream, players expected that the new quest would expand the game's lore and universe even more. Announced a full year before its actual release, this quest became some sort of repository for every unrealistic and wild dream the community had. Developers played along, saying it would be like nothing ever released on Warframe. A year later, the player base was exhausted. 2016 became a year notorious for its lack of content, and the one we got was not well implemented, to say the least. But objectively speaking, The War Within is bigger and better than the second Dream. Its pacing is good and does something very hard to achieve, that is, to tell a coherent story in a very short period of time without dragging it for too long. DE is very good at that, sometimes, especially when you compare it to other similar experiences on different games. But despite all this, the majority of players will tell you the second Dream is better. Personally, it is to this day my favorite quest. That is due to the fact that it flew under the radar until it dropped. It built no hype, and what we got was the most incredible surprise, the most amazing and unexpected experience we could have imagined. The War Within was the complete opposite, thanks in part to the second Dream but also to hype. We believed every little speculation, every little rumor, built the quest to be something it couldn't possibly achieve, regardless of how good it actually ended up being. Another example of unrealistic expectations came shortly after. During TennoCon 2017, we were introduced to the game's crowning achievement, the Plains of Eidolon. Yes, this landscape is Warframe's most innovative and revolutionary inclusion to date. You may not see it now, but once more of these features are introduced and iterated, you'll realize how much the game has changed, for the better. From a hallway to totally open spaces, everything changes on Eidolon. Rhythm, speed, difficulty, scope. But still, 9 out of 10 people you ask will tell you that even though its success, it underperformed, drowned in its own ambition. Eidolon is a grindfest of repetitive missions and chores, some say. And they are in part right. Bounties are incredibly repetitive, sometimes even though, since they only implement a few of the game's tropes. But this disappointment stems not only from Eidolon's very real limitations, they also came from a place where expectations met reality. Warframe 2, something truly great, an update that will give full-blown sequels a run for their money. All of these accolades were employed to describe the plains before we got our hands on them. Millions of people read them and thus hyped for something that was great, but never as great as many imagined it would be. Once again, hype played its part, and in hindsight, many ended up disappointed. Not because PoE is bad, but because it never met these unrealistic standards. And here we are. Another year has gone by, and the next big thing is right around the corner. The Sacrifice. The last of the Tenno trilogy of cinematic quests. The conclusion to the game's origin lore, because what has happened thus far in these quests is only the beginning of the story. Those cornerstones, the fundamental concepts that hopefully will build the stories of the future. What is a Tenno? How they became what they are? And probably we will finally get the answer to what is a Warframe. As usual, the hype train is full steam ahead, decoding promotional images, clicking on Ballas's face over and over again just to hear him say, "But you cannot defy your creator." And this hype is pretty much unlike nothing experienced before, since it's not only for the sacrifice. The hype is also due to Umbra. Years of longing and waiting, of speculations are finally coming to a conclusion. Finally we get that scarf, because even though everyone tries to deny it, it's the scarf. That's the only reason. What is the meaning of Umbra? Will it have new abilities? Will it be the non-plus-ultra of all Warframes? Will it be a new series of Warframes? These are unrealistic expectations. And you would assume that having walked this path before, we would be more aware of the enormous letdown that usually accompany these thoughts. But no, hype is steamrolling everything right now. Every time I scroll through my comment section, there is plenty of comments in sacrifice-related videos containing the word hype or something of the sort. But in the end, we know little to nothing about what's to come. We don't know much about Umbra other than it has a scarf, it can wield an Arcana, and it can wall jump. We don't know how it's going to be implemented, how it's going to work. We know nothing about it. Yet some will tell you they do. Speculations are fun, but at the same time dangerous, since they can build up that hype, setting you up for disappointment, taking away all of your enjoyment simply because you wanted to believe in something unattainable, even when you knew there was no basis to these assumptions. Suffice to say that I'm not hyped, yet that doesn't mean I'm not excited. As a lore fan, I can't wait to see where the story will take us next, the implications and ramifications of it. Today's world is often painted in black and white, so either you're hyped or you're expecting the worst. Still, this is really far from the truth. Personally, I don't expect anything out of the blue. I simply look back at previous similar updates to prepare myself. Luckily, the sacrifice is not the first of its kind, so we can take a look back and form some sort of realistic picture on what we could get. The second dream brought us a new tileset, that was Lua, a new system, that was Focus, a new Warframe, Ivara, new weapons, mods, enemies, and cosmetics. On the other hand, the War Within gave us another new tileset, the Kuba Fortress, a new system in the shape of river mods, new weapons, mods, enemies, and cosmetics. So expecting the sacrifice to be something more is unrealistic. We can expect, aside from the new quest, new weapons, mods, and cosmetics. A new or semi-new Warframe in the shape of Excalibur Umbra, possibly a new system, and that's it. Because to expect a new tileset with all the work that has been going with Venus is extremely unrealistic. It's not setting a low bar, it's just expecting something with context, not wild imagination. Don't hype. Don't build up an ideal that will only be debunked by reality. Don't say something is bad just because it wasn't what you expected. Don't paint a mental picture of an unrealistic world, it would only come crushing down with reality. Be excited, be hopeful, judge things based on facts, not dreams. Build expectations based on what you know, not on what you don't. For my part, this has been all for today. I know this is more of a rant than anything else, but I needed to talk about it. Hype kills things as much as it helps them gain notoriety. So for once, I would love if everyone could judge something based on what they got, not on what they were expecting. I know it's impossible, but a man has a right to dream. If you enjoyed the video or you found it interesting, please consider giving it a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more Warframe content and follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with everything. Again, thank you very much for watching. Wherever you are, have an amazing day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.